You marry both AI and open finance, boom.
Nowadays, it's fair to say that the data is new oil.
And it's a matter of time where the largest players will start seeing, these guys are growing fast. And if we don't buy them or be part of that ecosystem, we'll miss on it.
And what is changing? And I think there is no way back. Hello, everyone. My name is Igor Tomic, and today you are seeing a fresh new episode of the Fintech Garden podcast. And the topic for today is open banking, AI, and monetization problems. And today with me, Dr. Samer Soliman, who is Group Chief Executive Officer at Arab Financial Services. So in this case, it's really important, and we will be talking about MENA region and how open banking is evolving. Hello, Samer. How are you?
Hi, Igor, and thank you for hosting me today to the FinTech Garden. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure for us. For me, it's especially warm discussion because I love the region. We, as a company, we have an experience creating the open banking platform in Bahrain. And overall, the development of financial regulations and open banking is astonishing because United Arab Emirates, the open finance license has been granted. And if I recall correctly, the first institution which received the license in open finance was Taraboot, which we worked with. And I see here and there new companies having those licenses, and it affects the market. So maybe the first one that I really would like to explore your view, the difference between adoptions and regulations, because if you take a look on LinkedIn, everyone is super using open banking, facilitating the payments. But what is the reality? Is it more pushed by the regulator, or there is a market fit which is allowing businesses to operate more effectively with open banking?
Thank you, Igor, again for asking such a great question. And really, it always starts with who drives the market adoption first? Is it going to be the regulator who makes sure that everyone adopts a solution, or will it be the market by itself? Essentially, the markets that I've seen in the Middle East and Africa are driven mainly by the regulator, because the regulators in this region, specifically in markets like the Kingdom of Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates, they are adopting innovation, and they want innovation to drive their economy longer term, and they've developed strong strategies longer term to have a full conversion of the cash into cashless societies. And that is the main driver here in the region. And again, having seen it driven by regulators as well, now it's getting close to me. I'm getting stronger belief every day that regulator has to lead, regulator have to actually nurture the market to start adopting it, because the ultimate beneficiary this technology is the end user, and it will add a lot of value to the end user and their experiences longer term. So there are markets that decided to go commercially, and I did not see a lot of success there. But I think the more potentially success are the models driven by the regulators.
And that's what I want to touch, because like in European Union, if I can say, the main facilitation in open banking is kind of payment initiation and account aggregation for background financial checks for the customers. But what are the business cases that you see in your region? Like, what is the market demand and the value for the end customer?
Let's start with the concept of open finance. What do we mean by open finance, or what does open finance actually give? Open finance enables the market to utilize data about consumers at the consent of the consumer himself. Any information that you usually input in multiple institutions, in the future you should have the capability of not needing to resubmit any documentation again to any other institution, as long as they're part of the open finance ecosystem. And this, by the way, goes across banks and financial institutions, but also insurance is covered into the open finance space. Now, as long as you give access to the customer information, the number of use cases that comes on top of it varies from one market to another. But payment initiation is one easy model where you can move money from your bank account to anyone's bank account without having to be party of any other ecosystem, as long as you have open finance enabled bank account. There are many other use cases, and the sky is the limit, and it unlocks a huge potential for innovation once markets are enabled with a platform like this. Because if you think about it, I go to open a bank account in any bank today, they need a salary certificate, they need the bank statement, last 3 bank statements, and if I have any liabilities. Now, what if, when I go to that bank, I have an app that I give permission to the bank to get access to this information, and he grabs it from the ecosystem within the market without the need of me having paper produced. And this is a very simple example of account information service that could be used with the open finance. Payment is one, account information is the other one, and I would say sky is the limit. It unlocks a lot of potential of opportunities in innovation, like Uber brought it to the ecosystem of delivery. They did Uberization of platforms happened after Uber coming in. I think open banking is gonna do the same thing, but to the financial and insurance industry across the region wherever it gets regulated.
And you mentioned insurance, and I'm quite interested because I've read that actually the leading buy now, pay later platforms, they partially using open banking for credit scoring. Because I see the shift because by design, financial services, they were assuming that you go into the credit scoring companies or credit unions and kind of checks the current loans and additional information. But is this is going to be kind of changed and shift with the open banking and open finance? Because by nature, it sounds like the good place to in more visible way and more modern way to get the information about the customers. Do you see this as a field of usage?
100%. That's the second use case. So payment initiation is the first one. The second one is the credit scoring and the fact that you can, as a consumer tomorrow, know if you will be approved or not if you submit the papers to the bank, and you could know the limit, you could know everything simulated because you have all the information that will be shared with the bank available in a mobile app that can qualify that. So spot on. I think the quick wins from open banking would be payment initiation, credit scoring, and add to it a little bit of financial planning as well, because then you can facilitate the deposits through it as well. So there will be a lot of enhancement in that space as long as the banks collaborate and drive the adoption of that. Because remember, banks and financial institutions have a long list of projects that they have to deliver. And the fact that you come and ask them for something else as a regulator, it's still one more thing, and there is a deadline, budget allocation, cost, reprioritization, and the whole Dalai Lama. That's why people start to innovate, and this is where fintechs got created. And again, it allows space to companies like ours to build the capability and just hand it over to them as a use case and enable them accordingly. So it's a win-win scenario, let me put it this way.
Yeah, that's definitely it is, because specialization always wins. Because the bank, by nature, I would say the financial institution, not a tech institution. But it leads to another question: who captures the value? Because from your description and from my experience, it kind of feels that sometimes regulators, which are putting the requirements for the banking institutions, it's kind of the burden, because you need to deliver, you need to comply, you need to allocate the budget. And then there is a market of the fintechs, which quite fast, but sometimes they don't have a proper market fit or even the customer base. And then we see the companies as ecosystem like yours, who are providing the ready-made solution, which kind of closes this gap for between banks and then fintechs. So out of those ecosystem, who do you think captures the value for the customer? Who is kind of playing the same side as a customer, providing the most valuable value for the customers, like they will benefit from it?
Let's start with the one basic rule I tell all my employees that work with me across the geography. Number one, customers pays your salary. So you don't have customers, you don't have business. Okay, we don't have income tomorrow. So it's very important to own the customer for any organization, regardless. Having said so, open banking and open finance makes it freehand decision for the consumer to decide who's going to be who will own the relationship with that customer now, which makes it very competitive. And it will be the customer experience that will drive this ownership. It will be the benefits that the customer will see and how much you can do for that customer longer term using open banking, because he will find it more convenient to use this app versus a bank in the future. It frees, I would say, no one owns the customer at this point of time once open banking is introduced. However, the customer will have the right to decide who can utilize his information. This is number one, which is very important, because prior to that, the information of the customer is with the bank. And he decides if he can use it or not use it based on your permission. But they never share it with other banks. You will be able to share the information even if the bank does not want to share, without having to do anything. But then it becomes more competitive, because customer will belong to the person who will give him more value. And more value means benefits have to be higher than the cost the customer is paying for the service. And I think it will turn around the whole proposition from big institutions, global institutions has owned the customers always. Now the customer will have multiple choices, and the one that will give more convenience to the customers will be the one who will use open finance in enabling a great customer experience, and the decision will be with the customer. It will not be with the institutions anymore.
I think that's the first thing that our listeners should actually think quite deeply, because the competitive market drives the innovation. And the idea, or at least 10, 15 years ago, the bank was not just someone who's providing you the financial services, but kind of the custodial for your documents, like the information about you. And what is changing, and I think there is no way back, is kind of becoming the financial services, but no longer a vendor log or information log on the customer. So as a customer, you're able to share with the third parties, which kind of makes the even context for them. They can make same decisions based on the same data, or can be more competitive and more advanced with the checking, and maybe give better rates for the loans because they see more information about you, or be more effective because they can automate this process. So I think it's a great benefit for the customers. And one thing that I would like to touch, and I think it's not always the part of the open banking discussion, is the difference in implementation in different regions, or even the data integrity. I had really nice discussion and merchant payment ecosystem, and we discussed the difference between PSD2 and PSD3. And the question from moderator was like, do you think that PSD2 was not good enough? And my answer is that sometimes regulator, they introduce the rules, but they not specifying how exactly should be executed. And from what I saw in our regions, having sharing the data from the bank, it doesn't mean that it's useful. And then it comes even harder because you have different regions which have definitely different legislation, different form how they're supposed to expose the data. And then it kind of becomes another complexity to work with this data. Do you see this across the region? How you as a company working with this complexity?
The complexity is not only this, it starts even with the larger players who don't want to share data about their customer base with anyone else who will compete with them, right? So it's the softer bit. Challenge is there, and again, it's like adoption. It is a matter of time, I believe, that people who will implement open finance will be privileged versus others. Now, let me take you back a little bit, Igor, maybe before.
Sure.
In the 90s, I did the first e-commerce transaction in the UAE. Okay. One thing not all of the people know is that I was enabling the first e-commerce transaction in the UAE, and that was for a newspaper, for recurring payments at the time. The real adoption of e-commerce has been always in the play, and people has always been investing in it. I would say the hockey stick in the e-commerce space in this region specifically happened really after COVID. Really, the adoption and the percentage and everything happened really after COVID, because the economy or the environment forced people to adapt to it. I remember we had the best applications delivered to banks maybe 10 years ago, best internet banking. And I remember that some of the large scale banks had 30 to 40% only of their customers using online. And that was the big question mark. We have invested all this money on online banking and no one is using it, right? And now there are digital banks that does not operate except online, and they are the fastest growing business model in the ecosystem. But I remember again, the first digital bank we launched in the UAE, I would not call it Y, I would call it Me Bank, and that was in early 2000s. We had a ready card called Me Bank that is sold from the shelf. You go and operate immediately. That was instant, working, perfect. And you can access, you cannot use branches for that. You have to be online. That's how the behavior change is taken. I'm telling you now, sitting where I'm sitting, I was also part of the team, sitting in a room where we were talking about blockchain as if it was internet in the 60s, right? And see where are we with it today. See the crypto and digital assets and where are we today. I personally believe, based on my experience or what I've seen over the past 30 years in the payment ecosystem, there will be a little bit of resistance from the incumbents, from the large players today. But there will be the fintech leads that will come in that will, again, not have enough funding still to grow scale, but they will challenge the large players. And it's a matter of time where the largest players will start seeing, these guys are growing fast. And if we don't buy them or be part of that ecosystem, we'll miss on it. And I think this is where we're getting two at this point of time. And then the regulator comes in and put deadlines. The beauty of the deadlines of the regulator is that we have an end state where everyone have got the same capability, so the customer experience in this country will be the same across banks. That's the beauty of the regulatory driven open finance. While if you go to market driven propositions, or I call it market driven, some will have it, some will not have it, but the reward will go to the people who invests in it and take the lead on it. And that will be an inconsistent experience from a consumer perspective, but from a corporate and P&L management, maybe the ones that lead will take the lion's share of it and become the most dominant of that business. And there will be a point of time, similar to COVID, similar to the attacks we have seen recently, drive people to have to use open finance in their lifestyle, in their day-to-day life. Like you said, payment initiation, credit scoring could be one, sharing information could be another. The insurance example you tried to allude to with the buy now, pay later coming into play. Insurance also, how much is the insurance premium that you're going to pay will be decided by you sharing information, and much, much more use cases will evolve. I have personally drawn a 12 use case roadmap for my company, and we are focusing on one or two right now, but I'm talking about long-term strategy that we build on. So there will be resistance from the incumbents. Regulators will dealing with it with softer skills, and players like us will be evolving into that space given the fact that they have invested in the platform. And as you mentioned, Tarabot is one open finance proposition, is another one, I think, or Tarabot, and there is another one I'm familiar with. But AFS is also coming in where we have the relationship with the banks. So we have the trust bridge already with the banks and we can serve them. But again, we are the platforms. The use case will be defining who's successful. And the owner of this use case could be two 25 years old young guys who knows what their generation needs and deliver for them something that will add value to them. And potentially this is the future of it. And I can tell you, focus on this open finance, because I think payments is a legacy. And I can tell you right now, it's a way for Arab financial services, when we came to open finance, is a way to hedge potential risk in the core business that we've got. Because I believe that I'll not make money out of open banking today. But in case there is a shift of behavior from current payment ecosystem into payment initiation platforms, I'm in it. And I have a share of it, and I'm there as well. So, and the beauty that we've got is that we are operating in multiple geographies. So we're going to work on the interoperability as well. So we act as a hub, and we develop the integration to the banks. And also we will have, because we are in payments, we'll have a payment initiation use case to start with, and much more based on the requirement and the need of our customers across the geographies.
Yeah, thank you for such a detailed answer. And to sum up, maybe the second takeaway, in this case, it feels like you need to be prepared for the winter during the summer, because that's what makes the technologies really useful. Because initially you are kind of building the ecosystem, the use cases, and they're not something which is dominating the market. But when the market gets into the state that it's forced, even sometimes, as with the COVID, to innovate and use new cases, like everyone become digital. No one would like to touch the cash. No one is coming to the restaurants. And then the market's forced to find the new ways to accept, to execute the payments. And potentially something similar is maybe in a longer period of time we will see in the future, because instead of having the loan management come into the branch, bringing the paper, checking the authenticity, people will be using more online, because sitting at your home at living room and just applying for a certain application and just allowing an access to your account aggregation make a lot of sense to people. Right now there is some even generational oppression against the data sharing, because people don't have much experience with that. But new generations coming more fluent with the technology, with understanding what is the consensual access for your information. So it's really great takeaway. Thank you for sharing this thought that we're kind of in preparation mode. And when you think you need to do it, it's already late, because you need to develop and push it to the market much, much earlier. That's a great point. And I would like to jump, because our listeners will not forgive me if I will not ask about the hype with AI, because in one way, open banking seems to be a really good starting point with AI, because we are getting more information about the customer. their behavior, which is potential data modeling and data training for AIs, and then the next step, even the payment execution. So what do you think about combining AI and payments? Are they real use cases or just a hype, marketing hype that we see every day from LinkedIn?
I would say God save us in the future. I would say.
That's true.
Like the amount of capability the AI will be empowered by open finance, that's a massive capability that's created that will make a lot of decisions without you even having to think about it, right? So the integration of AI with open banking, this is basically what would I say? You are on a dam that's full of water and you're just opening that dam for the water flow. So the amount of information open finance can give AI is significant. And AI, the speed and ability of AI producing the results and tokens to follow based on the learning that it will make from data is significant. You can't imagine the amount of power AI would gain out of open banking. But that power is also governed. Remember, open finance and open banking both are governed. There is a proper governance around it. There is a whole ecosystem to control it. So, but you marry both AI and open finance, boom, all your financial needs are fulfilled. And there is no way, if we go wrong, you will be able to do any financial services going forward. So it is very powerful, but would be governed definitely because the amount of power AI is gaining with this level of data is going to be significant, of course.
But I'm fairly thinking about like a two processes because one, you mentioned the decision making for the customer, like should I invest, should I buy, should I pay? It's something which is happening like in the moment and kind of triggering the customer. But what do you think? And have you seen successful cases in understanding the customer? Because I think nowadays it's fairly to say that the data is new oil because the better you know your customers, the better you understand how the customer is making decision, what their goals are, how they behave, the better customer service you can provide. So do you know any cases when the training on top of the customer data is working? Because most discussable training is categorization of transactions. I think this problem existed for almost 30 years. As soon as we had cards and we had the local payments, the need of understanding what actually was in those transactions is a huge one. So do you think this already solved with open finance or there is still a space and someone is producing great results there?
You touched on a very sensitive point as if you have implemented open banking before. So that's the good news is like this is a real scenario where you implement open banking and data that you get in open banking is garbage in, garbage out. You have to clean the oil that you've got. And this is when we have the oil, we did not clean it. We use the same oil, so whatever comes in will go out. And this is where implementations of open finance does not make sense and gets everyone frustrated. We implemented the technology. We forced the banks to do it. We have done that. We have done the regulation and people are not using it. Yeah, because it's giving wrong information, right? You need to start from cleaning data and making sure that the streaming of data, the real-time streaming of data is happening properly. Because you go to a supermarket, go to a place like one of the mega stores or supermarkets in the market. They have electronics, they have medicine, they have clothing, they have everything, but you pay in one bill at the end of the day. No one knows what you actually bought except the supermarket. In the open finance world, it's a supermarket. You went there, you bought a dishwasher, but yeah, or open finance is no, you went to buy grocery from a supermarket, right? That level of cleaning data is not yet there in the market. And I think a use case could be, and think of that, customer downloading an app, he uses the app in the store and then pay using the app and have got open finance integrated to it. This is where you'll get the real stream of that and then decisioning will be made. And I want to leave you with this thought as well. Organizations who've got data are more powerful than organization does not have data. But the point is, who knows data first? It is not about data anymore. It is about who have got that level of information ahead of everyone and captures that window before everyone gets that level of information. And this is across the board. The most exciting bit for me is when I look at people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, right? You look at it, Google in specific. Everyone used Google. Everyone has to use Google. If Google opens a bank tomorrow, they will be the largest bank in the world, right? If Apple opens a bank tomorrow, they will be the largest bank in the world. But these guys, one of them dominated your internet behavior, and the other dominated your hardware and internet. So Apple went a level deeper. Now look at where Elon Musk went. Elon Musk went and did SpaceX to give you internet. To have, when you go to Google, you have to use SpaceX to get to Google. So he went one level deeper in the ecosystem, and he now knows before all of them. And someone will come on top of that to put his own satellite to make SpaceX to work on it. So it is a big space. And again, decision making is powerful. AI integrated decision making is powerful, but AI picks up information if it's clean or not. And Open Finance also shares the information. The point is that whatever you put in is good or not is another question.
So that's definitely the takeaway, because there are a lot of discussions like how you clean the data, how you categorize, how you do the algorithmic way or AI. But the real question, who is the owner and source of truth of the data? Because when you put into the basket the products in supermarket, does the final payment gateway knows what exactly you bought? Was it the gift, a Lego gift maybe for your kids, or it's a grocery that we need categorized properly in Open Finance? So it's a good open question, which is still not resolved. And I think the regulators, the main key players, or even, as you said, infrastructure providers as Apple, which is producing phones, Google, and then even SpaceX, and maybe in this case, we can put even Amazon, because they definitely play a key role in e-commerce. They come into the same chase, how to solve the primary source of information, like what we're doing, how we're behaving during the decision making for buying something, and how it affects the payment gateways, which is putting quite a lot of excitement into my thoughts about the future. So next 10, 15 years, definitely we will have a lot of interesting problems to solve. And since we are wrapping up in the end of the episode, we discussed a lot of things today. Maybe you have a question that I didn't ask you today, but you still want to answer. Maybe something that you would like to share with our audience or something like that.
I just want to leave the audience with one thing. Technology will continue to evolve. It's about choices that you make in adopting these technologies and using technologies in the most secure, safe way, longer term. And for fintechs in specific, I think you guys have got what it takes to develop capability. Always collaborate with the incumbents when it comes to regulatory requirements and things that will hinder you from growth or focusing on your core objective, which is adding value to the end user. So my advice is you don't need to build everything from scratch. Utilize what's existing and try to control the front end that the customer use, because the customer loyalty will be to that front end, not to who's on your back. So sometimes it's more efficient that the ecosystem also collaborate in changing behavior within the market, especially in the open finance space.
Thank you, Summer. It's a good advice. Please take a look, reflect about this. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It was a really nice episode. Please subscribe to our channel. Take a look on other episodes. We already discussed the open banking, PSD2. Please follow our news on our channel. And we're looking forward to see you once again. Thank you, Summer.
Thank you, Igor, very much for your time.